All right, so it says that we're getting set up. Looks like we're gonna have good connection here. Cool, redirecting. Boom, boom. Nice. Okay, cool, guys. So we're live. Welcome everybody to this week's live and Simple Kids Program Solutions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Charlie. I am the CEO and co-founder of Kids Program Solutions with my wife, Allie. And what we do is we help kids program owners just like yourselves scale your programs, reach those new thresholds, whether it be getting back your time, increasing your profit, or just in general, getting a little more freedom from the business. Maybe you like how much impact you're making in your community, and maybe you like how much money your business is making, but you're just working a lot. So we help you scale out to hire talented individuals like these gentlemen I have on the call today. So what you guys can expect today is we're going to have a diverse dialogue. My goal is to keep this around an hour to be respectful of our panelists' time. In addition to, obviously, we could talk about this stuff forever. I'm assuming. I know I could. I love this topic. So, but what we'll do today is I'm going to kind of have our guys go through, introduce themselves. And for those of you who don't know, today's webinar was designed with the intention of giving insights as to what millennials are looking for, what they're interested in, and not necessarily just to compartmentalize millennials and just make them super simple to figure out, but to understand from the standpoint of like what good coaches want to see in the businesses they work in, so that they're interested to stay there and build their own kind of micro business in the business, as opposed to going out and becoming competition in the local market. Okay. And so this is all about how do we take amazing talent and get them to love what they do and keep them on our team, as opposed to making them upset, pissing them off, and then them ultimately leaving the business to go do something else. Maybe they pursue a different career route, or maybe worse, they become competition in that same market, which happens all the time. Okay. So today we want to have a diverse discussion, get some great insights. So what I want to start with is I'm going to have each of you guys, Brandon, we'll start with you, then Wilson, then Bailey. Let's have you guys kind of briefly introduce yourself, how you got into coaching, what motivates you to stay in coaching now, and then we'll go from there in terms of asking questions. And yeah, so Brandon, go ahead.
So my name is Brandon, obviously. I kind of just fell into coaching. I played sports and they played a huge role in my life for my entire childhood, even up to being a young adult. And then my fiance was working at a gym that had gymnastics, and she brought up ninja, and I just figured I would give it a try and see what it was like. And I've always thought I was going to coach, most likely in football, because that's what I played for a long time. But being able to give back to sport was something that's important to me. So finding ninja, which is something new and exciting to me that I can do that in, and it's something that I have found personal passion in to do, makes it fun to do every day and gives me that opportunity to give back to sport and kids, because that gave so much to me.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Brandon. All right, Wilson.
How's it going? I'm Wilson Huddleston. I got into coaching through my family. My mom owns a gymnastics gym and created it when I was about 18 months old. And so I've kind of just lived in the gym. I actually never competed myself, but it's just like having a bag of tricks. And when you're a kid, if you can do a backflip, that's pretty cool. So I just kind of expanded upon that. And once I learned how to do a standing tuck, then I was like, all right, what else? Bring it on. I want to know how to do everything. And I was probably like 15 or 16 when I started coaching, really basic, just like maybe a 5-year-old class, and we're doing straddle jumps down the tumble track. But as my skill set expanded, then my interest in coaching and being able to coach all the way up through the skill levels increased. I've worked at several other gyms. I've worked for Woodward Camp. If you guys know what Woodward Camp is, that was definitely my introduction in like higher level skills, spotting double backs and double fulls, and just kind of what a team of tumbling coaches can look like. We're just doing backgrounds, right? I'm not trying not to get ahead of myself, but I've been coaching for a long time, since I was about 15 or 16, and I'm just turned 29, and I love it.
Perfect. Yeah, that's another good thing. Brandon, how old are you?
Oh, I'm 23.
Okay, cool. Bailey, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Bailey. I'm 22 years old, and I live in British Columbia, Canada. I started coaching when I was 20, so I've been coaching for about 2 years now. And I got started before I did ninja coaching. I was a construction worker, so I had no previous experience. I actually got to meet Charlie and Ali while they were in Canada for a short period, and I got hired on. I got approached by Ali first. Um, I got on and I started working with coaching, and what made me kind of fall in love with it was it's like the most rewarding job I've had, being able to work with youth and really like genuinely make an impact on the students that we have. That's why I like to stick into it.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, guys. So here's what we're going to do. So we have 7 questions for today. Or 6 questions, actually. Sorry. 6. Yeah, 6 questions for today. So what we're going to do is I'll try to keep time for each of you guys. That way we can kind of stay on track, because I do want to try to get through all the questions. For those of you who are watching live on Facebook, if we have time when we get to the end, put questions in the comment section now. And if we have time in the end, I'll circle back and then I can ask all of the panelists that same question. Okay. So we've obviously prepared our own, so in case we don't get any, but if you guys do put some in there, I will definitely try to prioritize them towards the end of the call. So each of you guys, I'm going to give you a couple minutes. So 2 to 3 minutes to answer. I'm not going to cut you off directly unless I feel like you're rabbit trailing. I'll be like, hey, it's a cool answer. Thank you. Let's move to the next one. Right. But definitely feel free to kind of like give us your thoughts, give us some of your insights. And I'll just try to keep us on time so we can kind of move through a lot of questions. Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to share my screen again. If this starts to dominate the live, I'll just take it off as I present each one of those. So, all right. So first up, can you describe your ideal work environment and how it aligns with your personal and professional goals? Again, we'll start in the same order. We'll go Brandon, then Wilson, then Bailey. And Brandon, you are free to go now, buddy.
All right. So for me, ideally in the environment that I want to work, I want it to be competitive between my peers. So I want us to be able to build off of what each other are doing and compete in a healthy way with each other to try to become better coaches and even just better outside of work. And then as well as supportive in that way of that competition builds stress and can make work challenging in good ways. So supportive in the way that, like, from a leadership perspective, being able to pick people up if they need to, or push people if the people need the push. It's important to me at work to be growing towards something, having a goal that I'm working towards. And best for me to do that is to be in an environment that is competitive and there's people working hard and I'm seeing other people working really hard, and that pushes me to work harder myself.
Okay. Excellent. Wilson, can you describe your ideal work environment and how it aligns with your personal and professional goals?
Absolutely. So the first thing that came to mind for me was just a clean gym with state-of-the-art equipment. Whenever I'm establishing relationship with clients, it is such an easy win if the parent is already just satisfied with the facility. They're walking in, it smells good, it's clean. They're like, okay, I didn't know this was here. Cool. And then if you back it up with your coaching, they're walking away with an amazing experience. So that, as far as I just really tapped into environment, the work environment, right? I want to walk in and be proud of the gym, and my clients will walk out being proud of the coaching and the facility itself. So as far as that being in my professional goals, that's job security. That's having a wait list on my private lessons. That's just making sure clients are happy, basically.
Okay. And Bailey.
For me, I like things to be like organized really well. I find that when I'm able to go into like work and I know what I'm going to be doing for the day, things are set up and prepared to go, it's easier to manage work. And with work being more manageable, that lets my personal life be more manageable as well. Because I feel like if I go into work and I have to catch up and I have to work hard, and it kind of burns me out a little bit. So knowing what I'm doing for the day and having there be like routines and systems in place ready to go, that I know what I'm going to be doing, just allows me to manage myself as an individual so that I can work on my own things outside of work better.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So one thing I do want to circle back on is, you guys are talking about some professional stuff, but I am curious from the personal aspect, what does it enable you to do? What ideally are you looking for in the work environment to complement your personal goals? And those are going to be goals that you would probably have outside of the business. So can you describe the ideal work environment in the sense that how does it complement that, or is that important at all, or you go from there, Brandon?
I think it's important in the way that, like, if I'm in a good environment at work, and that's like the physical location as well as the people there, all of that will translate into my life outside of that, because I'm going to spend a third of my life in the building coaching. So if everything is clean and everything's good, and I'm in an environment where I feel like I'm being pushed, that translates to when I go to the gym after work, I feel like I had a really good day. So I'm going to have a better workout and have better relationships with the people in my life. Work is such a huge thing that enwraps a lot of people's lives. So having a really good environment there translates into your personal life in a way of being able to continue on with the momentum you built at work.
Okay. Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of top off of that, there's nothing like having a productive day when you go in and all your classes are hitting and you see the light bulb come on for certain kids that had been struggling with a certain skill, or you just see how happy they are when they walk away with having achieved something, and then just seeing the transformation of a kid that maybe like didn't have a ton of confidence when they first come in, and then thanks to your coaching they can do a cartwheel now and they're like a completely different kid. That is why I do this. So like as far as the professional side, yeah, but my personal side's pretty ingrained with being a coach. I chose a long time ago to be a career coach. It was a little easier because my mom owned a gym, so it was like an already accepted path, that it was like I didn't have to tell my parents, hey, I'm working at a gymnastics gym, and there was never any like, oh well, what about a real job pushback, because it was an accepted real job. So that as far as personal environment, or how that aligns with my personal goals, it's my personal goal to be a good coach, and that it helps me to have a good facility and a clean environment. And I took it as the facility when I first read the question, but environment does spread into your co-staff, the people you work alongside. And while I haven't been super competitive my whole life, seeing someone do good, hearing them coach well across the floor, you're like, okay, all right, that's what's being delivered right now too. What am I delivering? I want to be able to deliver something like that. And I think that it's like what you're saying when you first said competitive, Brandon, I was like, oh, I don't know if I thrive in competition. I've kind of avoided it in my life, but I've certainly been inspired and seen great coaches that really made me want to fill in shoes like theirs,
Yeah. And that's definitely the vibe I got when Brandon was talking about that, is that it was about the environment being one that lifted you up and made you compete in the sense of like, I'm like, if you have like a bunch of coaches who are continually trying to be better coaches, I think that's the environment Brandon's talking about. It's a bunch of people just trying to be better and using competition as a place to kind of really fuel that fire and unleash it. And Wilson, I want to expand a little bit on one thing that you said, is like, it sounds like personally you get a lot of purpose out of the kid progressing. So it's like you draw a large sense of personal purpose and impact in your personal life from seeing the kid progress forward. And that's what you would ideally want to find in a coach, I would think, from an owner standpoint of, does this person understand the impact they're having on this kid's life? But you're saying for you personally, it's like, if that was taken away, that would take a lot of the joy out of coaching for you.
Yeah, it's hard for me to even imagine what that looks like. I don't know what that looks like. What is coaching if there isn't a positive impact? And if, I'm not sure. I maybe you could ask that again.
No. Yeah. It's just confirmation. Okay. So Bailey, go ahead on your end here.
For the gym that I work at, it's a gymnastics gym and a ninja gym. On the ninja side, we're all very close together. So I'd say the environment impacts me in a way where, for example, we have a coach yesterday that was struggling with their classes, and it meant a lot to them. And I think the reason why it impacts that individual so much is because we work so closely together that whenever anyone's having challenges or they're having a good day, we can kind of acknowledge that and we can notice that. And for days where I'm like not having a great day, I know that when I go into the gym, people come up to me and they kind of talk to me. They ask me what's going on. So it helps me kind of realign my focus, and it's kind of like a kind of like a supportive guidance in a sense, where if I'm having it really, really tough, I might want to beat myself up a ton, but then I know there's people there giving me that support to like, hey, kind of get realigned. What can we do to kind of work on that and just check in on me? And that also kind of helps me get realigned into my own personal goals as well.
You're muted, Charlie.
All right, cool. Thank you, Brandon, for that. Yeah. All right, so let me go ahead and share screen again for our next question. All right, so how do you see your ideal work culture promoting work-life balance and overall well-being for its employees? Okay, so I'll repeat the question again. How do you see your ideal work culture promoting work-life balance and overall well-being for its employees? It's kind of the question's asking kind of the same thing twice, just to elaborate, but basically, what is that ideal work culture promoting of work-life balance for you? What does that look like? Is it important to you? All that kind of stuff. You guys get the gist. All right, so I'll go ahead and stop share. Brandon, go first.
So for the gym that I'm currently working in, it's common to feel overworked. I work 6 days a week, and it gets to the point where you're getting tired. And when I get to that point, I feel like the quality that I'm giving to my classes and my students and even to my coworkers and the people that I talk to starts to dip, which is not what I want. I want to be the best coach possible and do the best work that I can. So it's important to me that the culture promotes being like monitoring yourself to be healthy, and like if you need, maybe you need a day here and there to try to avoid that burnout, or maybe you need to change things up, and just for people to notice that, for it to be normalized that if I'm starting to wear out and it's visible, my coworkers or my leader will come up to me and say, hey, you look like you're getting tired, you look like you've been working too hard, or not too hard, but like you've been working very hard, do you maybe need a day? And just have those conversations, being comfortable, me comfortable with them and them comfortable with me, to have a conversation when those things go that way, to avoid me burning out completely. Because I think that for me to take, a Saturday off and have a long weekend and then come back the next week ready to go is overall going to be better than me hitting a point where I'm in complete burnout and I need 3 or 4 days off, because I feel like if I'm going into the gym, I'm not going to give a good product to the kids. And product, I mean my coaching. I just think that's a better way to do it. So for the culture to be accepting of that and to be able to have a conversation about that and everyone comfortable with that would be super important to me.
Okay. Wilson.
Yeah, reading that question was like immediately thinking, we need a staffing manager, we need extra coaches, we need like a sub list in case of an unexpected emergency or vacations, or even just a mental health day. Like having those resources. I've been coaching for more than a decade, and I've burnt out a million times just overloading my schedule and having like 1 hour in between. I'm like, oh, I'll just slide in a private lesson right there or whatever. And it's just like doing the most. And I do love what I do, but there just comes a time where you get worn out, and having a strong team that can like fill in if needed for you in a moment is really important. And ironically, exactly like what we're trying to talk about right now, how do we get that team of like quality coaches that we could have that environment? But we're talking about ideal situations. So ideally, if something is going on with my dog and it's throwing off my day, if there's like, to have that freedom to be able to just like call in and be like, yo, I'm not gonna be able to make it or whatever, and not feel like I'm letting down all the parents and all the classes and everybody. That's one thing that, like, just explaining my job to other people or new people or people that don't understand coaching, it's like it's a lot. You are responsible for these classes. You have to show up to teach them. If you don't show up, who will? That's a whole group of kids that now doesn't have a coach if you don't show up. Like, this is not the job for no call, no shows. You cannot do that. So, yeah, having a team, having a strong team, having somebody that can also kind of like oversee that process, like a staffing manager, to be like, okay, I know who my subs are. I know who's available to come in and do this, and to be able to shoot off message and get those people in. Work culture, promoting work and life balance. Like you're saying, when you're burnt out, you're not delivering a good product. So being able to maybe have somebody that sees you taking on a lot and be like, hey, this might work this week and next week, but what about 4 weeks from now? Are you going to still have the same energy and be able to deliver a good product? So I think having knowledgeable coaches, having people that have been in the business and know what's up and have experienced burnout themselves, so that they can kind of troubleshoot and have some foresight for maybe newer coaches in the industry that are excited and want to do the most, but remembering that it's kind of like a marathon, not a sprint. And we're always trying to make sure that we have a consistency with the product that we're delivering, which is our coaching.
Nice. Excellent answer. Bailey.
Work-life balance to me is something that is extremely important. Just as an individual, no one really wants work to be their life. I think for people that are of our age, they're starting to get really serious about certain goals that they want in life, and they're kind of ready to start making serious commitments and working and progressing on these goals. Like maybe it's like buying a house, or it could be like fitness, or maybe they just want to build up a skill. And if I'm working a job where I feel as though that's going to take away from those goals, or I'm not, or all my time is focused towards work, while I'm there, my entire plan is going to be just I'm going to be thinking about how am I going to get out of this job? How am I going to switch into a different job that supports that better? So for an ideal like work-life balance for me would be, if I go in and my job or my boss expects me to, when I'm at work, that be my priority, and I kill it. And when I'm done, that's it. It's time to, like, your life is your priority. That's what I'm aiming for. I want to be able to show up to work, put all my best effort in, and then have the comfort and the understanding that after that shift is done, I'm no longer like essentially kind of like an employee right now. It's like, I'm Bailey, I'm doing my own things, I'm working on what I want to do. If work overpowers that or starts to take away from that, I'm gonna prioritize my personal life. And I think that, especially with our age, that's kind of, we kind of have that freedom to do so. Like, we don't have like those commitments to family, so we kind of have the freedom to take risks and go pursue our goals more, and just kind of figure out while we get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'll just add on a side note that
Yeah.
I've been the staffing manager, and that was probably the time that I had the hardest time with work-life balance, because it is such a task to be able to make sure that there is a coach to coach every single class, every single week. And I just thought I'd add, while we're talking about trying to find work-life balance, look out for your staffing manager. Make sure that they've got work-life balance too.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a piece of the culture, right? It's like everybody on the team you have to be thinking about everybody's ability to be bought in and do their job to their full capacity. It's more like, just, you have to view the human beings on your team as human beings and not just robots coming in to do a job. And so I think that, like, you guys have really done a great job of showing different perspectives and different angles of that particular element in the workplace, of that, you want to, and that I thought was really cool, Wilson. I really liked in your answer. And I know that Brandon and Bailey probably share the sentiment of, like, you don't want just to have the day off. You want to be able to have the day off and know that somebody good is covering your class.
Absolutely.
And not just ruining the whole thing. And then you come in and you're like, kids are devastated. This kid got hurt. And, this kid over here is just like, no more confidence because they tried a skill they weren't ready for, or the coach didn't know how to spot it, or, all these kind of things that could go wrong. So it's really cool to see that, of like, that was an insight I kind of gleaned from what you were saying, that I was like, yeah, that's a good point. It's like, you take pride in your work, and when you have to step away from it because you're like, yeah, maybe, something's happening with your animal or whatever you deem as a high enough priority to say, hey, I take my job seriously, but today I need to prioritize something else today. You want to know that somebody good is there to cover the task. And so I just thought that was super cool. I thought that was a super cool insight, that I was like, yeah, That's really cool that like it's not enough to just say, yeah, we've got you covered. It's like it impacts the coach too. And like I imagine if that were to happen a lot over like a year time frame or something like that, it would probably demotivate you to the point where you were like didn't like the job because you're like, dude, I feel like so much guilt anytime I try to take a day off that it's wearing on me to the point where I feel like I need to quit now because I don't even feel like I can take a breath. I don't feel like I can take a break without everything coming to an end. And so that's super interesting. And I know owners probably feel that piece as ownership, but the consequences are so severe that they just double down until they can't anymore. But for a coach, it's like you're only going to do that doubling down once, maybe twice before you're like, yeah, I think I need to just go work somewhere else. So really cool insights from all of you guys. All right. I hope everybody's finding this valuable. I'm finding this super valuable. So it's awesome to hear these guys' perspective. Okay, let's move on to our next question. All right. In your ideal work environment, what kind of support and resources would you want to see provided to help you reach your career goals? All right. So in an ideal work environment, what kind of support and resources would you want to see provided to help you reach your career goals? Brandon.
So in support and resources, I kind of want to talk about slightly separately, but in specifically support, I want to know that there is a plan long-term for what I can do there, as well as if I have questions on what that is, or if I need clarity and want to know what's my next step to get there? What do I need to work on today so that in 6 months I can get a promotion or I can move to a bigger thing, that there's a plan for that and that I can go talk to somebody about it. That my leadership is open and willing to, within reason, obviously have a conversation and say, here's where you are, here's where you need to go. And I think that even goes into like if you do quarterly evaluations with your staff and things like that to show them that like I am being looked at. I'm not just coming into work every day and doing my job and going home and then it's good. I want to be able to leave work when work is done, but when I'm at work, I want to know that I'm working to something more than what I'm doing right now. Even though I love what I'm doing, I want to, for my personal life and my goals in the future, be building to something. It's hard for me to buy into something if I think I'm just going there to pay a bill, because I can do that at McDonald's, which is less stressful. So especially in points where it's like, if I'm making mistakes, this is important that I think a lot of people want to avoid, especially people in my age group who are coming from being told that like, hey, you're doing this wrong, or you really need to work on this if you want to continue. I think it's important that leadership can tell me that and feels comfortable saying that in a way that I can digest it and work on that skill instead of just seeing like, oh, this will be a tough conversation and either avoiding it or just making that, like, having that one problem become a reason that I'm not going to get to move forward and then closing the door. The ability to try to work with somebody on that, I think, is super important. And then for resources, say I'm trying to become a head coach and I'm going to gain the responsibility of designing courses for Ninja. If I have a really cool idea, I want to be able to talk to people and have leadership and my other coaches help me flesh that idea out. And if it's, something new that the gym doesn't have, if we can't just go buy it to bring into the gym, that's fine. But being able to have a conversation and try to figure out a way to make that work or make something super similar work. So basically, to sum everything up, just having collaboration, not having like a wall between myself and the leadership, and clear, frequent communication on where I'm going, where I could be going, and what I need to do to get there.
Nice. All right, Wilson.
All right. So support and resources. I immediately thought of my first summer out at Woodward, because I'd been a tumbling coach leading up to that for a long time, man, at least 6 years probably at that point. But when they gave us our little schedule for the week and they have, hey, you need to be at this spotting clinic, mandatory. You need to be at this drill clinic, mandatory. And if you want, you can come to this lecture from this all-star coach. He's just going to tell you guys about how he runs his programs and blah, blah, blah. I ate that stuff up. I mean, spotting clinics and drill clinics are mandatory, but I, by the end of the summer, was like helping run those because I wanted the knowledge. I was interested and wanted to be a better spotter and wanted to understand how to spot on my left and on my right and spot a full and this and that. But so valuable. And I brought that back with me when I came back to Austin. I was like, hey, we need to do drill clinics. We need to like pick our brains, like let's get all of our coaches out there and let's talk about their favorite drill, their go-to drill, because it just helps so much as a coach to have a million tricks up your sleeve when you see a skill operate in a certain way and you're like, oh, I know the best drill that's going to solve that problem. And when you come in as a new coach, you just don't have that wealth of experience. So from a gym's standpoint, kind of like checking in with their coaches and being like, hey, what are some of y'all's go-to things so that we can kind of pass this down to some of the newer coaches that don't have that wealth of knowledge. So as far as support and resources, I just thought about training. I want personalized training. If an older veteran coach sees me doing something that there's a better way to do, having training personalized to me rather than just like a blanket statement, you could just come by and be like, hey, saw you doing something this way. And if you do it this way, I've gotten way better results with it. You should try it out. So personalized training, somebody coming up and saying, hey, this is something that you can do better. Drill clinics, spotting clinics. And then as far as moving on to other things or promotions and this and that, management training. A lot of times, if you're in a gymnastics environment long enough, you go from being a coach to being a manager of something. And if you've only ever been a coach, then you might not have all of those skill sets. I know for me, embarrassingly, I've just gotten better at Microsoft Excel in the last year because of some of my shift into management things, and that just being a resource that you need to be good at. You need to be able to edit the spreadsheet or make one of your own. And that's something that I have only just been able to get my finger on the pulse of. But I feel like those are things that were kind of like taught to me by the people at my gym. They're saying, oh, hey, I didn't realize you didn't know how to do that. Let's meet at 11 o'clock tomorrow and I'll show you what's up. So yeah, that just kind of partners in with the culture. Like, are we setting up our new hires for success? Are we giving them all the tools on their tool belt so that they can run excellent classes? Yeah, I think I answered that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Bailey.
I like having a path, so like a goal, like let's say it's a certain promotion, head coach, and a path to get there. I like having resources, like having somebody I can go to ask questions, because I like to very much approach other people and soak in knowledge that way, getting their tips, their advice, things like that. And I really like the ability to do it myself. So I hate to be micromanaged. I want to be able to get the tools that have been given to me and go pursue my goal kind of my way. And I find that I kind of flourish with that style. Although I do like to have people check in with me to kind of give me their tips, give me feedback on how I'm performing. If I feel like I'm doing it too much on my own and I have like no critiques or no evaluations, then I feel kind of lost in a sense. So I like to be able to build my skills and have somebody that I can come to like talk about like theories of like, hey, if I did it this way, would that be better? What are some ideas for handling this challenging kid? So I like having somebody to go to, but for the most part, I really like to kind of build myself up my own way, like my own coaching style, my own approaches with specific students and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well done, everybody. I felt like, again, great insights there. Most of those answers, to be honest, I did expect a lot of the answers that you guys gave, which is really cool to just get affirmation that those are in fact definitely really important. Okay. So how do you envision compensation and benefits playing a role in supporting your personal and professional growth? Okay, so this is really a question centered around compensation and what are the elements of it that you're really looking for to be exciting and interesting and something you can really count on, because as we all know, money is a necessary component of life, right? So It's like that's part of our reason for doing work, is so that we can have that. So again, how do you envision compensation and benefits playing a role in supporting your personal and professional growth? Brandon.
Okay. So I've worked at jobs where I live in BC in Canada as well as Bailey, and the cost of living here is very expensive. And I was working a job a while ago where I was getting paid enough that I was barely covering rent in a place that was pretty gross, to be honest with you. So compensation is important for my personal and then by extension my career goals, because I want to be paid enough to live comfortably, not in like a huge house or anything, but live in a place that is clean and I'm happy to go home to. And I don't have to stress about, am I going to make rent? Am I going to be able to eat? Am I going to be able to, pay all my bills, pay my gas to get to work? Ideally have enough that every once in a while I can do something, a concert, an event to have some fun. But for me to be focused on my professional goals and my personal goals, I need to be living happily and comfortably outside of work. So compensation for that is, obviously you need it. You need money that aligns with the way you want to live your life. So I think that's about the end of the answer. I don't know why I was going to keep talking.
Yeah, no, one thing I would like to ask you guys to maybe try to visualize is like, what would that number be, right? Like if you were to start ballparking those numbers of like, hey, this would be the minimum, where I'd be like, okay, I can skate by on that, to like, 5-10 years. What does that look like?
For me, right this second, I think I could live pretty comfortable at about $25 an hour. Obviously that's Canadian. For my goals into the future, I said it earlier, I have a fiance and I'm looking to get married. So I want to have a family and I want to be able to support her pushing for her goals as well as our kids eventually. And for me, obviously you would need more. I would want to live in a big enough house. So probably like 35-ish to more, but obviously that is in like moving up in positions and higher in the company at a base wage. When I feel like I'm at the point now where I'm a competent coach, my classes go really well, and I think I'm bringing value to the company, and I think I'm bringing value to the kids' lives and to the building that I'm in. I would like to be paid around that like 25 as more of a senior and leading coach.
Okay. All right, Wilson, your turn.
Yeah,
buddy.
I jumped straight into that. I said I need health insurance. I need the ability to do private lessons at my own price and no less than $20 an hour, and really more than $20 an hour, I think, is more scaled to how inflation works. And just especially like you're saying, if you've got a fiance, if you're trying to make a family, if you're trying to buy that house, that's also why I put in, I need to be able to do private lessons at my own price, because your hours are your hours. There's only so many classes that can happen during a week, but I can come in and work 9 to 5 on Saturday at my own price per hour and make my car payment go away and make my, like do things that are a little bit more at my own pace, to kind of supplement that earning. I know that, I think
Wilson,
that's a general number,
I'd
about
like to
$20
ask
an hour.
I'd like to ask a question, Wilson. If you felt like you were making enough, like if I was to employ you and I said, hey, I'm going to pay you more than enough in the hours where you won't need personal private lessons, would you be okay with that coming off the table if I said instead of 20 an hour, I paid you 30 an hour to compensate?
I think I wouldn't do that. No.
Because you'd always want that option to
Oh yeah,
bump your check.
it's a part of just, now that I'm like thinking about that, I'm like, well, I like to do private lessons. I like that one-on-one. It's part of, my personal goals is to be able to be the best coach I can be. And I'm not sure I would work for a gym that didn't let me do private lessons.
Okay. All right, cool. Nice. All right, Bailey.
For me, when I'm looking at compensation, I kind of look at like what the growth will be over time, because I'm willing to start at a lower wage and kind of struggle a little bit if over time the growth is consistent. Because I would like to be able to, like Brandon said, be able to like live comfortably and everything. But my biggest thing is I want to be able to know that consistently the wage will be going up at a pretty fair, like I kind of like to put compensation against with responsibility. So if my responsibility is going up, I think compensation can go up as well. But I also think as time goes on, my value as a coach increases with the relationships built with the students, the stability of the program, and my skills being grown as well. I need to see uh, growth to a certain point. Like I think the $25 to like 28 for a really good coach that's been there for a while, understands the program well, is a super reliable, is feasible, and these are Canadian numbers as well.
I know I'm like
And then
doing conversions.
depending on
It's about 30% for people in the audience. It's about 30% conversion rate.
yeah. So that's something that's important to me. I need to know that in the future, my money, the wage is going to be increasing, and it's not going to stay stagnant. Just with things like inflation, and not only that, if I feel as though at a certain point, even if I'm paid consistently at like 26 an hour, at some points I'm going to want more. I think that's kind of like a natural instinct for people. I think I could be comfortable with that wage and I could do that consistently for a long period of time. But at some point, I'm either going to want to move to a different program where I can get more compensation, or I'm going to move to a different program that maybe has different challenges for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a question I was going to ask later on, and we'll just go to it right away is what would that high cap be? Like what in 10 years, like what do you want it to ideally be?
Here's what I need. I think in 10 years, I need to be able, here's what I'm kind of aiming for. I need to be able to go on vacation for like, I think 3 to 4 weeks out of the year. That's what I'm kind of aiming for, is like additional money. And they doesn't necessarily need to be like I'm going to like Europe and blowing money like crazy, but I need to be able to take off like 4 weeks out of the year and be comfortable with that. I need to be able to know that I can afford the car that I drive comfortably. I can pay my bills comfortably. I have money to invest into things, whether it's like whatever, the stock market, or even to specific skills. Like I like to do a lot of training outside of Ninja. I Right now I can't afford to do like jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, even though these are things that I'm passionate about, but I can't pursue it without a lack of money. So I need to be able to afford a lifestyle that is comfortable and sustainable. I would like to be able to take like 4 weeks off out of the year just comfortably, and then also have some money to pursue passions of mine.
Nice. Yeah. And keep in mind, this is from the context of like, I bring you in as a coach. I want to keep you for a decade at
Yeah,
minimum. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like, think about it from that perspective of like, this is you staying in, coaching in the business, and maybe you take on additional responsibilities with that time frame.
absolutely.
But also, it's like, what can I do to keep this person long term? Because, like you said, Bailey, like I teach owners all the time. I'm like, look, the longer a coach is with you, the more valuable they become, not only as a coach, but to your specific program. Because like you said, the relationships, they build rapport, they get to know the systems, they get to know how things in and out work, they get to know the coaching style, and everyone's got a different coaching style, and it all kind of stems down from ownership. And so it's like the longer a coach is in that framework, the more valuable they become. So it's like that needs to be on the docket. So based off of that, Bailey, you still feel like your answer is right on point with that?
I think down the line, like 7-10 years down the line, I think that is reasonable. I think the amount of time that I put into the company and the amount of time I've been growing myself as an individual, like if I'm a staff that shows up and I'm just showing up to meeting expectations, like just meeting expectations, okay, I think that's different. But from my understanding of all the coaches here, we go above expectations. We aim to grow. And I just think staff like that are the most valuable, because so many people I know struggle with staffing, just people that I speak to. So I think long term, 10 years to be able to afford a comfortable life, with being able to pursue passions outside of work, and to also be able to take some time off, because as you kind of said earlier, we are humans. I don't think life should be work. I think work is a part of life, and that it needs to kind of remain a part of it and not take over. And I think the time I've dedicated to building up myself kind of helps me build towards my life, and that's got to be a part of it for me, I think.
Okay. All right. Let's go backwards now. Wilson, go ahead and answer that question in terms of the 7 to 10 year time frame and what that was.
Well, there's inflation calculators that exist in the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you just look at, and I recently went up on my private lesson prices, and it'd been a long time since I did that. I hadn't changed my price since 2015. So I was just like, well, if I paid $75 for something in 2015, what should I pay for it now? And it was like 93 something. So I
Yep.
raised my price to 95, and now we're normal again. We're back to what I feel like the ratio should be. But as far as like what Bailey you're talking about, wanting to take those vacations, wanting to have fun in your life, right? To me, I feel like my hourly should cover my bills. But if I have the resource to go and work hard on a Saturday and afford plane tickets or concert tickets or whatever I want to do with my life, if I don't have the ability to make extra money on top of my hours, then I'm stuck. But if I could pick up a bunch of private lessons on an afternoon and provide that opportunity for myself that I wouldn't have had if I'm just grinding through my hourlies, then I don't know, I feel like I'm getting a little bit off topic because I was wanting to go back to the private lesson thing, but compensation should adjust with inflation over the course of those 10 years. So I think it's just kind of like based on, and I mean, if you have bills that need to be met, like I'm not going to go work at a gym that can't meet my bills. And I know that might be tricky for a gym owner because you can't just like hire the kid with a Maserati and a huge list of bills. Then you'd be like, oh yeah, sure, we'll take that on. So like compensation should adjust with inflation. And I would like for my base hours to cover my bills. I know I'm going to make all of my ends meet just by showing up to work. But if I want to go above and beyond, that's when I get to go to Bali. That's when I get to do the other things that I can do. And hopefully we got a staffing manager set up for my subs whenever I go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for those of you who are watching, I will say little nugget. He's right about the inflation. So healthy inflation marker is 2 to 3% off of our current economic system. Unfortunately, in bad hyperinflation years, it tends to skyrocket up to about 7 to 8. And then on marker years after, it tends to drop back down to 1 or 2%. But over the long term, it tends to shake out to be 3 to 4%. Now, you should have an annual price increase in your class rates, right? So it's like that's how you compensate for what Wilson's talking about is they're expecting their pay to increase because their money buys less with inflation. And so you compensate that by raising your rates and therefore raising your pay rates in conjunction with that. And by the way, your pay rate should always be connected to the price of your classes, okay? I promise you that will save you a ton of money. Just do it. 30%. That's what I always tell owners is 30% of your revenue should be allocated to payroll. Okay, Brandon, go ahead and answer the question for the 7 to 10 year marker.
I think inflation would be a huge part of it, but it would also be tied to my role in the gym. If I am so currently I'm one of the leading coaches in my gym, and I've worked outside of my normal hours on developing and running and designing competitions and outside things other than our day-to-day classes that bring value to the company and help grow the company's image and grow the people there. So I think the fact that I do those things and I'm bringing in X amount of money and X amount of value to your company, my pay should reflect that. So if I'm bringing on more responsibility with doing those, as well as if I'm going to potentially move into a management position and pick up even more responsibility there, my pay should reflect the work that I'm doing and basically how much I'm giving the company. So if I'm giving the company, I made them $100,000 in a year, just as a random number, I think that I should in that year be making a percentage of that. Maybe not a super high percentage, but I want to be getting some back for what I'm giving the owner of the company.
Yeah, fair compensation for that. Okay.
I think
that did just kind of. Oh yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
That kind of sparked an idea of compensation as far as like if you're making a ton of money and you are holding retention, like you didn't have any drops or like Yeah, I think that I've never been in a gym that offers bonuses at the end of the year, but that's maybe a cool idea.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it is. Matter of fact, I do recommend that in quarterly reviews. If you aren't tracking coaches' retention on a personal level, I highly recommend it so that you can. That's actually a great way to gauge out what's an excellent coach versus what's like a bad coach. Because the excellent coach, like they're only going to lose. Everybody's going to lose some, right? But an excellent coach only loses a small percentile of their roster versus a poor coach is going to lose a large percentile of their roster. So, and then there's a spectrum there. So, Bailey, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say, if a possible thing that I'd kind of am thinking about too is like in the future, if somehow I'm working less hours, so if maybe I'm in like a management position where I don't need to be in the gym all full time, if I could work less hours, then all those like to have those kind of like extra expenses or the revenue coming in isn't as important because I've gained kind of more of my personal time. So if I can afford my bills and I don't need to be actively working the same hours that I do now or more, then having the extra like revenue coming in isn't as much as a priority because I've gained kind of my life back. And if that could be done where either there's less classes and more personal training sessions as a coach, or I'm in a management position where I don't need to be in there as much, I'm kind of on salary, that would also be like a super great position for me as well. I think if I'm management or I'm in that salary position, I want to be able to like have time back. But if I'm an employee and I'm grinding, I want to be able to get some enjoyment out of there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So guys, we're coming in close to our hour marker here, and there were a couple of questions that came in. So we're going to kind of swap over to those really quick. Some of them are apply to all of you, and then one of them applies directly to you, Wilson, based off something you said. So first off, are you guys full-time? Are you part-time? And then before when you do answer that, please qualify that with I'm part-time, full-time with this many hours. So
Okay.
Brandon, go first, and then we'll go Brandon, Wilson, Bailey.
I am full time. I coach the full slate of classes that my gym offers, and it works out to about 26 to 33 kind of hours. It really ranges depending on what's going on at the gym, but I am what my gym considers full time.
Okay. Wilson.
I'm also full time with 40 hours a week.
Is that all coaching, or are there any hours?
No, it's facilities based, and then like time for just like planning and stuff like that. But
okay.
I have like a morning shift, and then I come back for afternoon classes in the night.
Oh, you do a split shift.
Sort of the split. The morning, I'm not coaching in the morning. I'm tending to facilities. We've got, I'm moving ladders around, changing light bulbs, and doing this stuff to make sure the gym's looking good.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, Bailey.
I average about 35 hours dependent, but that kind of depends if there's birthdays and field trips and kind of extra events. For the most part, I average about 35 hours with about 5 to 6 of those hours being like cleaning and then planning, because we also set up for the courses. So we do the coaching, we look after the courses and all of the stuff. All the ninja stuff.
Yeah. That's sounds like your owners are getting some good deals on you guys, man. They're not only getting coaching at you, they got Wilson changing light bulbs and Bailey working on ninja stuff. And they're like, yeah, man, let's just throw that into the responsibilities. All right.
Put the acrobat on a ladder. He'll do good.
Yeah. Put that guy up there. He can change out the light bulb. All right. So this one's for you specifically, Wilson, because you were talking about this. If you call your own prices with private lessons. So if you're setting your own price tag for private lessons, do you carry your own insurance?
So the gym takes a portion of whatever price I set. For a half an hour lesson, I think it's $15. For a 45, it's $20, and for an hour, it's $25. So adjusting, the gym holds the insurance because I'm doing it through the gym, and the gym takes a piece of that price.
Okay. All right, to prevent, and then this will be for everybody, so we'll do Brandon, Wilson, Bailey again. To prevent physical burnout, what is your ideal class size?
I've been working with 8 as the main, and then stretching to 9, and on very rare occasions 10, and that works well for me. The amount of kids in each class isn't in my personal opinion, that doesn't affect me as much as just how many classes that I'm coaching in a given amount of time. Obviously, if I've had 15 kids running around, that would be far too many. But having 8 and even stretching to 10, depending on also like the mannerisms of those kids, there are classes that I coach that are 1,000 times harder than other classes. And that's just kind of part of it. So I think to prevent burnout, if you can work with the families and your leadership, whoever plans the classes, to maybe try to spread some of those kids out and make it so they're coming not all at one time, would be really helpful with burnout. But unless it's a particularly challenging class, 8 to 10 is a really good range for me.
Cool. Okay. And that was good. I like that you added on the piece of like, hey, it's not necessarily the amount in the class as much as it is how many classes I'm doing. All right, Wilson.
Yeah, I'd say 8 to 10 is probably optimal. I coach most of the classes cap at 9 where I'm at, and my personal view on that is that they don't split up on stations very well. There's going to be one person's alone, or it's going to have a station with 3 or 3 stations with 3, and I would just rather have 2 people on a station each. But 8 could improve, and 10 can sometimes be too many. So we've settled with 9, and 9 works. And it's definitely, yeah, it's like hard to just say 9 kids is always going to work, because if you get those 9 best friends from school that are absolutely a handful, it's going to be like a totally different class that needs a little bit more, needs some more tools for you to be able to do it productively. But about 8 to 10, and then it just starts getting to where, like, if you have a class of 10 or more, each student is having to wait so long before their next turn that it's just like not as productive of a practice. But I have had like 14 cheerleaders in the same class because they listen enough. I'm not having to manage behavior so much. They're here to get better at tumbling, and they're going to listen to the tips, and we can do line drills pretty organized with a large number. But not my favorite. I'd rather coach about 8 to 10.
Cool. Excellent. Bailey.
I like the 8 to 10. I think Brandon makes up a good point of like spreading out difficult students. I've had classes where I've had 4 students and I'm like barely surviving to get to the end. And I've had classes where I've had like 13 to 14 kids in it, and it's doable. Those ones were older groups, so they're more mature and able to handle it. But I think spreading out the difficult kids makes a lot of sense. And I think 8 to 10 is a pretty safe number. As far as classes, I like to grind pretty consistently. So I do 4 classes a day, Monday to Friday, and then I'm open to do classes on Saturdays. I'm also open to doing like birthdays and field trips if I have like a part-time coach that's willing to cover, because if I do that consistently, that's where the burnout starts to happen. And I need like 1 or 2 days here and there off just to kind of get refreshed. But I feel comfortable in that grind if I have the ability to take a day off and recover, and then I can go back to the grind.
Okay. All right. And then final one is, so do you have different rates for like admin or coaching? And everybody can answer this of like, do you get paid a certain rate to coach classes? And then when they ask you to do other things, do you get paid a different rate, or is it just the flat rate across the board? Brandon, we'll start with you.
I just get paid flat regardless of what I'm doing. When I go in early or I'm later doing work, it's all just the same wage. I just clock the hours before and after.
Okay. Well,
Same flat rate, other than my private lessons that I choose my rate on.
And you give a kickback to the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, Bailey.
I get a flat rate. I don't like the way that our program has paid out people, because it started out as it's all flat rate. But what happens is typically they give you the responsibility, and after you do the responsibility from like 6 to 8 months, then you kind of get the wage increase there. So we're all flat, but I would say it is important, because there'd be part-time people that are working like 1 class a week or sorry, 1 day a week or 2 days a week, earning the same per hour as a coach that is making classes, making plans, affecting the leveling program, and working full time, but they're getting paid hourly. So I don't like that approach to it. But I do think everyone should start at kind of a base, and then based on hours and responsibility, get improved from there.
Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our panel today. You guys stay on the call for a second here. For those of you out there, if you are in a position where you want help going over your staff stuff to kind of implement some of the systems that these guys talked about on the call today, this is exactly what we do in Kids Program Solutions. We rebuild your career pathing, your compensation structure, your culture practices, so that you can get that kids program flowing smoothly and grow it basically to infinity and beyond. Okay, so if you feel like that's something you guys are really struggling with, Allie's going to post a link in the comment section below. Go ahead and schedule a call with us. We'll do a free discussion with you about your staff structure and give you some great value on that call and see if working together is the right next step for our businesses. So in the meantime, I want to thank all of our panelists so much. They volunteered their time. These coaches are phenomenal. I know so many of you are probably on the other side of this call like, oh my gosh, if I could just have these 3 coaches, I would have $1 billion business. And it's like, yeah, you probably would, but you got to find them where you're at. And hopefully today gave you some insights as to what good coaches are looking for, what they want out of the business, what they want out of life. And we'll catch you guys next week, every week, Thursday at 11 Mountain Standard Time. We are doing lives. I don't remember what the next live is off the top of my head, but you guys will always post it in the group, and you guys can catch us there. So hope you guys have a great day. And my panelists stay on with me right here for a second. So we'll talk to you guys later.